Hey, how y'all doing, guys? So yeah, I figured I'd kind of just start the chronicle of my little trip report stories. This first story is really not that crazy or intense or anything like that, but it's basically my introduction to substances in general, which, of course, speaking, classically speaking, the first substance I took was, of course, marijuana. Now, actually, here's a funny story. Before my before my mother and father had their differences and had to be away for a while. I know that's getting a little too more into my personal life, but I gotta, some things are needed to be said to give an overall perspective. But I guess I was unsupervised at the moment, and I had drank a can of beer, and it wasn't enough to get me drunk or anything. I was like 2 years old, I believe, but I was able to get to a Budweiser. I can remember the can. I remember just looking at it, looking like this looks like a deck of cards and everything. This is really interesting. I drank it, nastiest shit I ever tasted. I was like 2 years old. Oh my god, bro. But anyway, first time I smoked weed, and it's funny too because the first time I smoked weed, guess what? I was with my grandmother. Yes, my grandmother introduced me to marijuana. That shit is absolutely insane. And she didn't come across as like no hippie or anything like that. She used to sing in church a lot. She wasn't really a Christian. She had a very just open mind. She's a Sagittarius sun with a Pisces moon, and I don't know what her rising sign is. I'd have to go deep into research with that. But pardon me, that Jupiterian and then that splash of Neptune right there. I've always grown up in that energy spectrum because I always used to go to my grandmother's house on Fridays whenever I was a child growing up. And I still, whenever I have dreams, the energy, even if it's this old house. It used to be a golf course and everything like that. So, broad philosophical points of views, a broad golf course. I know that's not necessarily fire as far as a metaphor, but just that energy of being broad and just being open. That's the mutable energy just in general, whether you're talking about air, earth, fire, or water. Pardon me. But anyway, the first time I smoked weed was with my grandmother, and it was fucking crazy because I was like, well, don't tell your mom, because my mom was kind of crazy about that, which she ended up enjoying smoking marijuana too, and me getting smoking for the first time actually kind of was able to make her, get back into it. That's a whole nother story. I'm not here to get too personal into that. But anyway, yeah, it's the first time I smoked. And it was weird. Like, I was like, how old was I? 16, 15 years old? This was 2010. So I had to have been 15 or something like that. So that was goddamn like 9 years ago. So 9 years ago was the first day. That's crazy too. The number 9, and I'm in an ascension process. I'm feeling like I need to stop. I need to lay off the weed a little bit, to be honest with you. I feel like I need to kind of cut back a little bit, not be so over dependent on it, not fall into that Pisces rising, trying in my Cancer moon energy to be so prominent in everything. So yeah, the first time I smoked weed it was Reggie too. So I mean, like, it wasn't like no medical grade shit or anything like that. Regardless of whether people say that there's chemicals in the marijuana and everything like that, whatever you intake in your body, as long as you are conscious of a certain transmutation process that you can do in your body, that's mental alchemy, physical, spiritual alchemy. You can turn whatever you put into your body into gold, basically. That's just a science that you have to, study and go internally into yourself about and tap into that moon sign and those moon alignments that you got, and to find that aspect of where you can attract this energy. But anyway, I was into the Beatles at the time. I was, still digging up on my music history. First it was Michael Jackson, then it was the Beatles and everything like that, getting into the little classic rock, British rock phase and everything like that. Never really was a big fan of like traditional alternative rock, like 2000s rock, but I've always enjoyed old school shit. I don't know, it doesn't matter what it's old school, it always goes back to funk, jazz, rock, like old school rock, soul music, Motown, classical music to a certain degree. I already said jazz, bebop, which, I mean, that's just derivatives of jazz and everything like that, hip-hop, old school hip-hop, 80s, 90s, preferably 90s. I love the new shit too. I'm open-minded when it comes to all music, even country to a certain extent. I mean, you gotta learn and take a little bit from everything. That's the same prospect of learning all the zodiac signs and learning all the energies. You want to be able to tap into as much as you can. But anyway, this whole video was not about my whole experiences with that. But it kind of ties into the same thing as well, because it was what was it, the Revolver album? It's the Black and White album. That was the one I was listening to while I was tripping, and Rubber Soul and Revolver. So I was listening to those two albums, and that was the first time I ever got high, and it was just, I knew I was high. I knew I had my perspective had changed, but it was honestly extremely subtle. It was very subtle. It was like a gradual buildup. I slept good. You know what I'm saying? It was more of like an energetic mental thing for the most part. I didn't get sick. I didn't have a traumatic first time experience, but I do remember kind of going out, because I was already a far out individual and daydreaming, not really paying attention in school, but daydreaming in class. My teachers in middle school, I mean, I never really got in trouble. I was never really a bad kid in school, but I was very quiet. I didn't relate to nobody. It didn't matter what race, it didn't matter what cultural background, what was going on with ever those personal people, and just everybody connecting. I was just never able to connect with people at all. That's a whole nother story. That's why I feel alienated in almost all situations. That's why I'm shy for the most part. Even in the soul, I still love all of y'all, and this is part of my life goal. But you kind of notice I'm more on the shy end of things. I don't post videos every single day and everything. Shout out to the people who have the energy and the stamina to make videos every day. I'm not saying I can't, but I'm still working on myself. As you can tell, these videos are just a progression and a mirror of what I'm going through as a soul and trying to reach out to other people. So that 11th house stellium is really important in this aspect, in this build. But anyway, yeah, that was like my first time smoking weed. It was very chill. Overall, it was really chill. Not sketchy. After the fact, everything ended up being cool as far as weed, and then that's really when the whole lifestyle started to really change, and that's when my life kind of took a change for good and for bad. You know what I'm saying? It was a trip. I wouldn't say I've had a traumatic life. I've been through trials and tribulations, don't get me wrong. That was more so when I was getting into my 20s and everything. 18, 19 years old and everything like that. Starting to, have social anxiety. That's a whole nother video. That goes into them, because I need to start talking about, because with the weed, to be honest with you, in the very beginning, it wasn't really a lot about the weed. It was about what I was saying in the beginning, in the previous video, the K2, the spice, because of an individual. I'm not going to call him by his name. I'm going to call him the pure energy. The reason I call him the pure energy is because his sun sign was Aries, which is Mars, which is pure potential energy. So I just call him potential energy, because that's all he was a fucking. What's crazy about this motherfucker too is that his moon sign was Sagittarius. So that crazy. I've always kind of known that Sun in Aries trine Moon and Sagittarius energy before Uriel even came into my life. But this is more on the negative end of the spectrum. This is more on the chaotic end of the spectrum, whereas Uriel is the more positive and the more Jupiterian aspect, whereas this played out more in the Mercurian aspect as far as being curious and everything like that, and trying to gain as much information. I need to structure these videos, because my whole experiences and interacting with the people and my own personal insecurities at the time while being high off of this fucking demonic ass substance, it's really a crazy story. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down, and y'all have a great rest of the day, and I hope it doesn't rain too much more. I mean, it don't really matter anyway. Peace, y'all.